Hi.
And welcome to Slowcraft at the Ori Mill. My name's Stephen.
And I'm Tilde.
And if you've been watching, Tilda's been teaching me to knit. And it's a bit of a slow process because it's taking me time to get my head round it, although I'm enjoying it. And we thought it'd be a good idea. I mean, I'm very lucky, I think, that as I'm knitting, Tilda's correcting my many mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes get a little bit frustrated, maybe, with my knitting.
Mildly put, I think.
Okay. And yeah, so Tilde, I kind of then hand it to Tilde, and she, with her magic skills, shows me how to fix things. But actually, I'm finding that a lot of the mistakes I'm making are quite common. I'm repeating the same mistake, and I probably should be able to fix that mistake myself, because I'm seeing you do the same thing. So what we thought we'd do in this video is...
I really wanted you to fix the mistakes.
Right. Well, let's you do it, and then I'll think about it.
For another wee while, yes. Okay, fine.
So you're going to fix common mistakes. So we've got some... Okay.
So just a quick thing. If you're not quite sure how to fix mistakes, and you don't really want to kind of ruin your knitting, knit up a test square.
Knitting a test square.
Yeah, so just take some scrap yarn you've got, and you can actually see there is a wee mistake there. So I have knitted a test square. I made a couple of mistakes in them.
So you made a couple of deliberate mistakes.
Yeah.
Which we're going to show. This is kind of what I am doing. It's chunky wool. This is a... What kind of stitch is this? Stocking stitch?
So this is stocking stitch, which means that it's a row of knit and a row of purl.
Okay, so this is what I've been doing. Well, I've been doing a rib. So I've been doing 2 knit and 2 purl.
Yes.
To give us a rib effect.
Yeah. It's just a little bit easier to show it in the stocking stitch, what you do.
I was going to show my knitting, but I'm not going to. So focus.
So here, this is what you often do, is that you knit the wrong stitch. So you knit a purl when you're really meant to knit a knit stitch. So the way to correct this is, or the way I correct it, because I don't have to rip it all out. A lot of beginners have to rip it out because if
so hold on, let's talk about that then. So because this is what I've friends who knit, and I've asked them, what if you don't have a Tilde to fix your knitting, what do you do? And they've said to me they rip out all their knitting. And I went, oh my goodness, that would literally be pulling off the top.
Yeah.
Revealing row by row.
Yeah, just take it off the needle and just take it all out again.
We'll start again from the beginning. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
But obviously you
well, it's not crazy, I totally understand it.
Yeah.
And maybe interestingly, that's how you become really good.
Well, the thing is that you really need to, it's kind of to some degree easy to teach people to do the knit stitch and do the purl stitch. What's much more difficult to teach people is how to fix your mistakes.
I think so.
So that's why people come to the classes. That's because they want to learn to fix their mistakes.
Okay, so this here, we're not going to rip it out. This here, you can see this is kind of missed or an incorrect stitch. It's what's happening, a purl over a knit row?
Yes, I've just knitted a purl where there
should be a knit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do?
So I would first of all, I'll slip these stitches over so I get to that stitch.
To that column almost.
So I'm looking up here.
Yeah.
So I know it's that stitch there. That needs to be corrected. So
yeah.
So then I will drop this stitch here.
What does drop a stitch mean?
So basically I've just let it go, and I'm just
pulling it out.
Yeah, I'm just pulling it out.
Why does it not all come apart? Because it's held on either side held by these needles. So hold on, stop. Hold on. So you've opened this up at the row that's kind of broke. If I was to keep pulling it though, what would happen to there?
It will just run all the way down, and then you'll have to rip the whole thing out. And
Right,
start
okay.
again.
But at the moment, it's not that easy to see this. We've kind of got this
You
loop
have
here.
these ladders here, so we still need to rip out a bit more here so we can correct this. So this is, so actually, if you have your knitting and you drop the stitch, this is how a dropped stitch will look like. If you dropped it and you not noticed and you knitted on, you will actually it will look a bit more like this. As soon as you see you get a drop stitch, get a stitch marker in it so it doesn't run any further.
Okay. Do we have any stitch markers?
Yes, I took this wee thing here because the stitch marker you would need is actually, these are the knitting stitch markers, right? So these ones slides on the needle. That's not the ones we want. We want the ones, these ones that looks like wee mini
Safety pins.
safety pins, yeah. So
Can you just show it layout so we can see?
yeah, so this one here, that's the one you want. So if you drop a stitch, get one of these into that stitch.
Okay, but however, it's slightly confusing because we haven't dropped a stitch. We've knitted a stitch over where a purl should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what do you do now? So I don't understand how you then tie this up to be knit purl, knit purl.
So I can use my crochet hook, or I can just use my needles. So let's try.
I would just use your needles. Yeah, just use your needles first.
So basically, I would just knit it. So make sure that the strand you're knitting here.
Hold on, let's do that a wee bit slowly.
Yeah.
I want to come in. Can you move up? Move the
Yeah. Sorry. So I get the tip of my needle in here, then I find the strand, the one that runs lowest down.
Like the ladder, so let's see the ladder of them.
We got all these ladders here.
Maybe push
So
it up.
I want to use, the next one I want to use is that one there.
Okay.
So basically,
Sorry, the thing about this wool though is because it's ply. How many ply is this wool? 4 ply? No.
this is a super chunky.
So,
So if it's the weight you're talking about, but it's 3 plies. So
Yeah.
it's
so sometimes I then knit through the ply.
yeah, so
And
you
that's
need
annoying.
to make sure that you got the full strand of wool. So this is the next one.
Yep.
And again, I'm just using my tip to kind of pull the stitch out. So let's just try and see that again. So I'll do that all the way up. So this is the next ladder I'm using. Let me just double check here.
What is this at the
No,
back?
no, this is the one here. And then I'll just wind around my needle and then pull it up. So I'm going to find,
You're out of shot, so
sorry,
come into shot and then
yeah, so I'm going to find the next ladder, which is this one here. I'm going to put the tip of my needle into the front, and then I'm winding that ladder round my needle, and I'm then just slipping the stitch.
Are you doing the same thing each row?
Yes.
So I don't quite
So-
understand that because we've been knit in purl,
But-
so they're all a row of knits.
So
They're all a column of knits.
yes. So when you're knitting on the right side, you're doing a knit stitch.
Yeah.
When you're knitting on the wrong side, you're doing a purl stitch, and this is kind of a reverse knit. So I'm only, at the moment when I'm picking my stitches up, I'm only working from the right side, which means that all stitches is knit. So if you were to knit stocking stitch in the round, you will only be knitting, you would not be purling.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No. I'm kidding, it's fine. So
So next, there's another 2 to go. So again, round, I'm just kind of pulling the stitch over.
okay, careful.
I'm then putting my needle back in from the front, and then I'm taking that last,
Let's go and push up.
and then I'm
Push
just,
up. Oops.
do you want to, so I kind of swung it around at the tip of my needle, and I'm then pulling it through the stitch, and now I can put it back onto my knitting.
Okay, so now you're back to where you were, but you want to put those loops back onto the...
Yeah, so now, because I have another mistake down here.
Well, let's take it one thing at a time. Hold on. let's go back to normal base start. Go back to the beginning without put everything back on, just so we can show. So we can split it up.
So basically, then I would just pop my stitches back on here, and I will then carry on knitting.
Okay, so let's see our square. So this is our square where we had round about here. Oops. We had dropped. We did a knit stitch instead of a purl, and then it caused a kind of funny gap.
No, it was a purl stitch instead of a knit.
Right, and so it caused a kind of funny gap.
It was causing that wee bump, the wee bumps that you see on the other side. It was creating one of them.
It's more like a line. These are like a V shape.
Yeah.
And this is like a ripple or something.
Yeah.
So now we've got this hole. Why have we got a hole here?
Yeah, so this is an accidental yarn over. And
What's
this
a yarn over?
It means that you basically created a stitch. I'll show you how you do a yarn over. But
so yarn over is an actual technique
that
you might want to use in certain things.
Yes, in lace knitting.
In lace knitting.
Yeah, so you can see it creates kind of a hole. Often beginners think that this is a dropped stitch.
Right, yeah, I would call it a drop stitch.
Yeah, so, but the way to kind of identify it, can you see those 2 rows of V's going up here?
Yeah.
Can you see they split?
Yeah.
And then, so if you see them split and then suddenly another stitch
and then back
appear.
Again.
I know, but see there's suddenly another stitch appears on top of the hole.
Yeah.
So you have those 2, they split, and you're getting an extra stitch in between them.
Yeah.
So that basically indicates it's a yarn over. If you can't see a wee loop sitting here that looks like it's going to run, you've done an accidental yarn over.
Okay, but you could have done. You could make it lots of nice holes.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, that would be a yarn over, and that'd be a technique and give the fabric some look and feel.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how are we going to fix that? We're going to have to go split it again.
So we need to go back and slip the stitches over. And I'll show you what the problem with this one is. So we let that go.
Why did you? Okay, this is where the.
So this is the one.
This
is where it is. So if you were just to do this, can you see?
We got actually the ladder again, right?
Yeah, well we actually don't have a stitch to ladder up because we had done an accidental yarn over.
Right.
So in this case, I would actually suggest that you rip it out.
To where?
To where you had the accidental yarn over.
So you're telling me rip it out to that line?
Yeah.
How would I do that without ripping out the whole thing?
So you could remove your needles and just rip. And I always rip to a row before I really want to do.
Right.
Because then I can slowly put my stitches back onto my needles.
Right.
Another one that beginners might like to do, and especially if it's not too far down, you can do what's called tinking back.
Tinking back?
Yes.
Well, let's see that then.
So let's just get.
Hold on, what are you doing now? You're putting it back on.
So I'm putting them back. So I'm putting them back on, just because I want to get back to the beginning here where I have.
So I can tink it back. You cheeky tinker. There's a park near here called Tinker's Park, and I'm not entirely sure what a tinker is. Tinker, tailor, soldier, spy. What is a tinker?
Yeah, I don't know.
We're going to find out and come back. Hello, we're back. So, a bit of a funny one. Tinker is a little bit pejorative, or maybe slightly rude and or derogatory, because it refers to a travelling person. Now, I am of Irish descent. I'm Scottish, but my great-grandfather was Irish. And for some reason, tinkers, some people say it refers to travellers. But I don't. But actually, if you look it up, it refers to a fixer of metal or pots and pans that would maybe travel about. So then it kind of transferred over to be a slightly derogatory term. I didn't ever think it was derogatory. And then, as I say, there's a park near here called Tinker's Park. But you're going to tink back.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because maybe that's something like fix back. We're going to fix it.
Yeah. So the way you do it is basically you go in with your needle from the back of the stitch into the stitch below.
Okay.
And then you can just pull that yarn out.
I could do that again. You just do the same thing.
So
Can you bring that up?
So I hold that in my left hand and I go into the stitch below.
Yeah.
From the back,
Okay.
and then basically just
Oh, and you're releasing that. I mean, that's a kind of slow motion thing. Do that again.
in from the back,
right,
and then just let
into
that
the row
stitch.
below.
Yeah, and then just
Right
pull
now,
it out.
so what we're doing is we're taking. You're going to take the whole row off,
Yeah,
and you're effectively just pulling it apart, but by maintaining each row as you go
Yeah.
to maintain the integrity of the fabric.
yeah. So basically, just
And now you're speeding up
yeah,
like a cheeky tinker. A skillful tinker tinking back.
So sometimes what I find is if it's only a couple of rows, you can tink back. You can tink back because it takes I always assess whether the time it takes me to put it back onto the needles is more than if
More than ripping it out.
So I'm always kind of assessing which method is quickest.
Well,
But
we'll do
also-
a power of television and come back to this.
Yeah, but also I was going to show you how to tink back 2 rows.
Oh my goodness! Why would you? So you're just releasing 2 rows at one time?
Yeah, basically.
Let's do that
so
then.
let's just get started here. So
So you've really. Oh, so you found the
Actually,
loop for the second
I'm
row
actually
below.
I'm actually going 3 rows.
3 rows. This is like crazy television.
Yeah, so basically
Crazy YouTube.
because I'm now going the other way.
Yeah, but you got to work it out now.
So yeah, but I can see which one. So I can see 1, 2, 3. That's where I'm going in. So but this time I'm going in because I'm working the other way. So we were working that way and I put it in from the back. Now I'm working from left to right and I'm putting my needle into the front. And then I'm basically just releasing all these 3 at the
To do
same
that again,
time.
I'm kind of getting confused about your front to back thing.
So here, because I'm putting my left needle into the stitch, I'm going in from the front.
This is the 3rd row down from
Yeah.
where your top needle is.
Yeah, so I'm just,
And you're just putting the 3rd row onto the left needle.
yeah, in from the front, and then I'm
And
just,
then pulling out the upper 3 rows,
Yeah.
one column at a time.
yeah. So this is releasing 3 at the same time.
It's just amazing. Okay, will we speed it up?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
So
a much reduced piece of fabric. So from that accidental yarn over, which was a hole, created a hole. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have kept it in, and the integrity of the fabric would have remained.
Yeah, but remember when you had the yarn over, because you knitted an extra stitch, you actually had too much yarn sitting up there.
And what would that have done? Just
It would have created like a really loose bit.
and your tension would have gone.
Yeah, the tension in that bit would have gone completely.
Okay, so that was quite interesting. But what about something that I've not done it. I've done it when I'm watching television or something and knitting. And interestingly, you can't really. I can't watch television and knit. I have to concentrate on the knitting. And then sometimes, I don't know why this would happen, but my needles come out completely.
Yeah.
What would happen? I would just completely pull that needle out.
So if you just did this.
But that's what I'm talking about. So now you have no needle, and you're in danger of this all falling apart. Although,
Yeah.
what do I do now?
So I like to then go and take 1 row back. So again,
Why would you take 1 row back?
just because when you're
You want to
starting,
get to the tension bit.
so it's actually, if when you start putting these ones on the
Yeah.
needles,
Yeah.
you might accidentally pull one out.
Okay.
It just, because these ones now sits and hold on to the previous row.
Okay.
So if you kind of do your almost kind of tinking back this way, so pop your needle
You
in.
have to change the frame. So, okay.
So pop your needle into the back of the stitch, and then just as you're going along and pulling out the stitches.
Oh, you catch it as you pull it out?
Yep.
That's quite clever.
So I always go to at least a row.
It's just a kind of
I only
maintains
pull out,
tension, it's a bit tighter,
Yeah.
it's a bit cleaner.
and I just manage to. It's just easier, I find, to put the needles onto, because I can also pull. If I pull in the stitch itself and pull up in the yarn, I kind of can open up the stitch. Can you see?
Yeah.
And then I can pop the needle in. So again, here I'm opening up the stitch by pulling in both the loop, the stitch, and the tail. And that is if I find I don't have enough space. So that is fairly straightforward.
Amazing. That's really good, really useful. Okay. So amazing. Thank you, Tilde. Raising the flag. For tinking back. For fixing an accidental yarn over. For... What else did you do? Oh, a stitch.
And the wrong stitch.
The wrong stitch. The wrong trousers.
Also, so the way I was re-knitting that stitch after it, that's the same technique you would do if you dropped a stitch.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a whole series of how to fix knitting, and it's probably quite a useful one because, you know, it's a bit of practice, a bit of patience. It could stop you if you've done quite a significant fabric.
Yeah.
A lot of rows and a lot of stitches, then you don't really want to rip all that out if you find you've made a mistake.
Yeah, so that's actually why it's really good to practice on a practice square.
Okay, pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. See you next time.
Bye bye.